Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Show. I'm your host, Violet Rainwater, and today I have a special guest with me. Today, Kamakshi joins us. She is an expert on childhood trauma, which, if you've been following, is very dear to my heart. She is also what she calls a heart set coach, which she's going to share with you why. And I'm so excited to have her here. Welcome, Kamakshi. I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you, Violet. It's wonderful to be here. I really am thrilled to talk to you this morning.
Well, you came highly recommended the moment that I started asking about experts on childhood trauma, because that was a source of a lot of the struggle, the pain, the prison that I created in my own mind. So I would love to hear a little bit about your work and your story, because you're actually an award-winning playwright and you have a one-act woman show, and that deals with childhood trauma and your story. So will you just share a little bit, Cliff Notes version about you, your mission, and what it is that you are hoping to inspire the world with this knowledge?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, the Heart Set Coach has come about because of all the emphasis on mindset, which is obviously so important. And in my experience, especially as a trauma survivor, but I really think it's true for everyone, if we aren't attending to the healing that's needed at the heart level, the work to shift our mindset is much more challenging and it doesn't take as well. So my first revelation of how important this process is was when I was in graduate school and I was just past 40 and I had memories surface of repressed childhood trauma. And the illumination, and I guarantee you it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life. Um, and it was the most necessary for my healing because I had so many damaging patterns that were going on in my life that had been going, and I'd had many other traumas that I remembered, but I didn't remember the very, very youngest ones, which is very common to repress because they're so overwhelming.
Right.
How it showed up in my life was I was continually attracted to men, who were abusive,
Yes.
and the patterns increased and increased up until I was in my early 30s, and it was really, really horrible. I literally ran away to an ashram.
Wow.
to, it was in this country at the Kripalu Center for Yoga in Massachusetts to to crawl away into a hole and heal, literally.
Yeah.
And that began the journey of of realizing that there was a whole spiritual element that I needed to explore, as well as the somatic. It
Yeah.
was every level that I dove into. But the patterns just kept chasing me in different strange masquerading forms,
Right.
right?
Isn't that interesting how that happens? Like you get
Exactly.
one and you're like, okay. And then there's like eight more that you're not
Yeah,
even aware of.
right. And so the humility of the journey is one of the biggest things
Mm.
that has come to me along the path, and then it's stoked the desire to help others in any way I possibly can, because there is always hope, and I've been through some crushingly dark times. And in my first show, Wild at Heart, A Tale of Trauma and Triumph, I show the reveal of when the repressed memory surfaced, and then the different forms and ways that I took to begin to find that hope for actual real healing. Not because in the spiritual world there still is a lot of a little bit ungrounded,
Yeah.
what's called spiritual bypass.
Woo woo.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead and say it. Yes, and I watched that for years and went, I don't know, but I had to really go into the trenches myself
Yes.
to find my way.
Yes. It's interesting. You brought something up. When we have childhood trauma, one of the things I learned is that I was chemically attracted to abusive men, that it
Yeah.
was like literally my vagina was attracted to, and not to healthy men. So it's
No.
like on a chemical level, it's
Mhm.
so wired into us that we identify love and passion and chemistry with men that are not good for us. And I think it's not just in romantic relationships. I
Mhm.
would say even in my career, I often would like rub up against certain male bosses in a way that, like I would either attract bosses that would make sure to close every door they could, like never open any door for me, or there was just drama, or I would be victimized. It was those same patterns. So can you speak a little bit more on, when we have childhood trauma, there's certain beliefs
Mhm.
that we incorporate, whether we know it or not. And those beliefs are really the driving force of everything that we do. And so oftentimes we find ourselves in these toxic relationships. And that's a really hard place to be. I mean, to your point, you like had to crawl away to an ashram. So, can you share for anyone who maybe finds those same patterns, like what is the first step to even just identify it and start making changes so that way in 10 years you're not still creating these same patterns?
Exactly. And gosh, there's so many things. So awareness is the first step. I have a 7-step bridge model process where the first plank on the bridge is awareness. You can't
Yeah,
get on the bridge without it.
that's so true.
And that, it sounds more simple than it is.
Yeah.
Luckily, in our world, there's so much more information and it has destigmatized a lot of this, thank God. Yet there's still so much personal shame when it
Yeah.
comes to these things. And in both of my one woman shows, I personify shame as this kind of like golem like creature who's like, you know, you fat fucking failure. And he says all these things that are like that
It's
inner
true. And
critic.
you're wearing that monkey on your back wherever
Yes,
you go. And, and you're hearing that.
that's shame, the monkey on the
Yeah.
back,
Yeah.
100%. So I will be guiding the process, and I'll say more about it, about the need to dismantle shame and find out why shame exists in the first place. And in my show, I go through this process finally towards the end where I talk to shame, I change characters back and forth and
Wow.
find out from shame that he's actually, and he's, for some reason, he shows up as a he, much like what you're
Why
saying,
am I
because,
not surprised?
right? Exactly. The internalized
Yes.
male, masculine presence.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, but the heart of it is pretty much every time shame is actually trying to keep us safe.
Right. Right.
So it's like stay small, don't ask for too much,
Right.
don't put yourself out
Hide.
far.
Hide. Don't show up.
Right, right. Just take the best, settle for less than, take what you can get. Some is pretty good, don't, ruffle things too much. And when we can contact that place, it's such a relief to realize I am not that voice of shame. That is just
Right.
this aspect of me. It's not the whole me. And as
Yeah.
it's a line from my show, I say to shame, you are my small self ego trying to tear me down so you can justify your existence
Mm.
and
Wow.
can perpetuate that lower ego place of stay small, stay hidden,
Yeah.
resist, don't get big, don't get loud, blah blah blah, right? So if you can give shame a new job and say, well, instead of trying to push me down and push me back, just love me,
Mm. Yeah.
just see me and support me, and yes, finding those ways to transfer safety into self-care.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like shame is one of the most toxic, destructive emotions that we carry for years without recognizing it. And I feel like it doesn't always show up as, be small and hide. For me, the way it showed up, and I didn't know, was perfectionism. And
Mm,
I remember I had a coach that about 15 years ago, and she was helping me as I was preparing, and she was trying to push me into action. I'm like, oh no, I need this to be there and this and this. And I said, I just want things to be perfect. And she asked me, she said, do you know the root of your perfectionism? And I, up to that point, wore my perfectionism like like a gold medal. Like I thought it was good work ethic and wanting things to look good. And I told her that. I'm like, oh, I have, pride in the work that I do. And she said, well, underneath that pride, at the very root, is shame. shame. And I was just, it was mind blowing to me. And I realized how much shame I had been carrying. And it wasn't just perfectionism, it was people pleasing, it was workaholism, it was addiction. I had all these coping mechanisms because I had this core belief that something was fundamentally wrong with me, which is what happens when you have
Exactly.
trauma,
Yes.
in childhood. And
Yes.
so I think it's important, like you said, awareness. That's my first step too. Without an awareness, we can't do anything, right? And so it's easy to say, well, or rather, it might sound easy to just, oh, let's have an awareness, but it's a lot harder because we're asleep, we're in a trance, and we're just operating from autopilot. And so we don't realize it. So I always like to say one of the ways you can recognize it is by identifying those coping behaviors.
Mhm.
Like do you have a people pleasing problem? Do you have a perfectionism problem? So what are some things that you like to look for that maybe if people aren't aware, like what if they're not aware yet? How can they become more aware? Because I think awareness is the hardest part of all.
Right. Well, when you are seeing in your life all the examples of what's not working,
Yeah.
relations that are not working, you're not waking up feeling like, woohoo, yay, life.
Right.
I mean, just across the board,
Anxiety, depression, right?
panic attack,
Hopelessness, exhaustion.
insomnia. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
chances are you have shame.
Yeah. Or isolating. Isolating has
Yes.
become an even bigger than ever.
Numbing.
Yes.
I was queen of numbing, and I didn't even realize it. And my whole day was numbing, like either working so much or stuffing myself or spending too much. It was just one numbing after another.
Right.
And I had
Exactly.
no awareness to it.
And yes. So there's it's very much how they say with sometimes, sadly, with the 12-step programs, break down before breakthrough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for many of us, myself included, and again, humility, I used to kind of laugh, joke about it, but it was like, life will, tap you on the shoulder. Maybe this guy isn't the right guy for you. Hello.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine. And then life comes along and starts pushing you from the shoulder. Then life comes along and starts, smacking you in the head, and you're still like, no, 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 it's okay, I got this. And then comes the 2x4,
Yep. Which
you
is
know.
what it took for me. Like I couldn't see it. I
Yeah,
got like 5 2x4s in a row,
I
because
know.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't see it. And it's so crazy how it was so clear. Like looking back now in hindsight, I can see it so clearly, but I couldn't see it. I just wasn't getting the lessons. Because I had it so ingrained in me to minimize,
Hmm.
make excuses for, right? Like other people's behavior, and,
Yeah.
and take on more on myself. Like, oh, it's okay. As long as you're happy, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I can do it. And, it wasn't until I just couldn't do it for another second anymore. And I remember when I finally crashed, I couldn't even get off the couch.
Hmm.
All I was doing was taking bong rips, and like I would take my kids to school, to daycare. I would stop and get a bagel, like a bagel, stuffing myself with a bagel was another way of numbing. And I would just take a bong rip and just feel nothing. For months, I did that until I saw a movie. And I'd love to know if you've seen this. That movie was called Finding Joe. Have you
Mm,
seen that movie?
I know of it, but I did not see it.
So it's on Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And
Mhm.
in that movie, you have these successful executives talking about how 5, 10 years ago they got fired. They broke up with their fiance. They lost all their money. They're on the couch. They can't move. And they realized it was happening for them. And when I saw that movie, because I'd been resistant to this new life, I destroyed my old life and the new life was not shaped yet. So I was like, just panic and fear. But seeing that movie allowed me to surrender just a little bit and realize that as uncomfortable as it was, this is my pathway forward. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about healing is that yes, it's messy and it's so painful and it's ugly, and it's not this like sometimes at, you and I both went to USM, right? And so that whole like, oh, healing is this beautiful process. No, it's not.
It's
No, it's
messy
not. It's
and yeah.
so painful. It's like literally the caterpillar turning into mush before it can become a butterfly. But if you can just find tools to,
Oh,
and which is something you're going to share with us today. I'm so excited. You're going to be doing an inner child meditation. But if you can find tools to help you day to day as you're on this hero's journey, you will come out on the other side and it will be a much more beautiful, vital, abundant, prosperous, healthy
mm,
life. And that's what I believe we came to live. We're
oh,
just stuck in survival mode because of our past and our wiring.
and that's why what I hear you sharing is that, when you finally get through the messy, yucky stuff, you can have those peak mountaintop experiences where it feels like, where joy suddenly rushes in and first relief,
Yes.
and then the joy can really flood your being. So that's
Yes.
where that kind of like angels are singing, oh,
Yes.
comes in. But we got to go through all the stuff in the valley before we can get to that mountaintop moment. And then life just keeps happening, like we were
Right.
talking about earlier, where, oh,
Peaks and valleys, right?
exactly, exactly. But you were describing so beautifully more of those signposts, more of those awakening moments of like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then the key is taking action, right?
Right.
Having that realization.
But you have to have the courage, and that's where I
Oh,
think the
gosh,
healing
getting
has to,
help, but I basically it's like realizing maybe I need help,
yes.
like you
Yeah,
see the
maybe
movie.
this is a little more than what, I can do on my own.
Yes. And I'm
Um,
glad you brought up Joseph Campbell because of the hero's journey or the shero's journey, which
yes.
is which is different. There's a lot of women out there, myself included, who, edit the hero's journey for the shero because
Right.
it's important to do that. We have different journeys to honor. But that idea of my soul is here to have an experience in this body of mine, and many, many, many times it can be like, what, why has all this happened to me?
Yeah.
For me, the bigger canvas perspective helps to take the onus off my own personal failure, like there's something wrong with me, which you're exactly right, is a very much a trauma survivor pattern, though it does affect a lot of people no matter what. It's our world and our conditioning as women, even more so, I would
Yeah.
say, for us to constantly think we're not enough.
Yes.
And but that also for me, and I've watched it for years and years, that I keep going back to the self-reference of I've done it wrong. I
Yeah.
blew it. I made the mistake. I dropped the ball. And that otherwise everything would be fine. But it's, something that I have missed out on or missed, and then back to the shame we go. So then that's
Yes.
boom back down into the valley. So it is not for the faint of heart, the journey. And I think, that's why understandably there's resistance to
Yeah.
diving in. It's scary,
It's
and
scary and it's uncomfortable, right? Growth
yes,
is
oh,
uncomfortable.
so
And it
much.
and it really does take a long time. I remember right after the 2x4, I couldn't eat, like I didn't even want to work out. Like I was so angry, like I just wanted to be still. And so I started little by little. I was a part of this really beautiful gym. I would go to the gym, but I would only go into the sauna and the jacuzzi. Like I only started by just soothing myself. That's the only, like I wasn't going to push myself at all. And that's all I could do for a few months. Like I could either just go on a walk, nice nature walk, go in the jacuzzi, go in the sauna. Eventually I started getting a little on the bike. Eventually a little later I started, doing weights. And before I knew it, I mean, it took a long time. I was back at it and I loved feeling strong, but I wasn't there in the beginning. When life shatters into a million pieces, I
Mhm.
feel the best thing we need is just love and kindness and support and self-compassion. And
Yes.
that's something that we don't learn when we have childhood trauma. And that's why it's so difficult. And not only that, like you to your point, you got to move into action. I The way that my brain worked, whenever I took on anything new, it
Mhm.
felt overwhelming.
Yeah.
I would try and it wasn't coming together right away. So I would just quit and then I'd start over and then I'd start over and then I'd start over and then I'd start over. And it was like this broken programming, within me. And so I was never really able to actualize the dreams that I had until I began healing. Because part of growth is being uncomfortable, making mistakes, and being okay with that, knowing that's part of the growth process. I couldn't do that. I couldn't make mistakes because to me, mistake was failure, and failure meant life or death to me as a child. And so I think there's so many ways that we get held back.
Oh,
It's in some ways like we have this challenging childhood that we run and escape from. We bury everything we can, only to find that it comes right with us into our adult
mhm.
lives. And until we do the work, no one can do it for us. Only we can do the work. But on the other side of it came the self respect and self love for walking through the fire. And so it was so worth it, even though it took years. And I'm sure I'll be healing for the rest of my life from my childhood, but I know that there on the other side of it, there is emotional freedom that we can't even imagine.
There is always hope for more peace,
Yes.
freedom, and joy. And I just want to be clear when I say move into action. I think you get it, but so many coaches say that, and I for many years heard it like it was pushing myself.
Yes.
And I want to be clear that for me, the action is as you described. What do I
Inspire.
need to do to get help to
Yes.
heal, to recognize I need to I need to do things differently. I
Yeah.
need a guide. I need somebody to hold me and support me. I need to go to the gym, but only go to the jacuzzi and the sauna. I need
Yeah.
to, you know, it's it isn't the word action I think has that masculine,
Right.
get shit
Go,
done.
go, go. Do, do, do.
And often it's really what I call it, inner action.
Yes.
There's outer actions and inner actions, and not inter, but inner. And that inner action is how do I get into myself and be in relationship with me in a
Yeah.
healthy way.
Yeah, it's that coming back to ourselves because I think so much about childhood trauma is we abandon ourselves. Like I spent my life disassociating, not even realizing it. And it's just something that I do. Like even my oldest, he'll say, Mom, there were so many times I'd be talking to you and you would just zone out. And he says, like, I'm so much better now, but that was just one of my coping mechanisms. Here I was, a single mom back then, responsible for all the financials, working 80 hours a week, going to grad school, like very masculine roles. And the way that I learned to cope is by disassociating and zoning out because it created like this layer between me and the weight of what I had to carry. Like it was just how I learned as a little girl
Oh,
to check out and not participate in what was happening to my body, as a child. So, um, I know today you are going to bless us with a meditation, an inner child meditation. And I really would love our viewers to follow along with us because meditation is something that has changed my life. It rewired my operating system. It helped me go from constantly being in fight or flight and operating from that place to activating my relaxation response first thing in the morning and really setting the stage for a peaceful and powerful day ahead. So I'm so excited, Kamakshi, to have this inner child meditation. Will you please, take myself and our viewers through this?
absolutely. And you've set this up perfectly. So thank you. I
Perfect.
love all that you said.
Yay.
So, yes. So the best physical position, if you can, whether you're sitting in a chair, you might sit on the floor. Chair, have your feet flat. Just kind of even things out with your own body first so that there's a more optimal flow of energy. And then bring one hand to your abdomen area and one hand to your heart, if that's comfortable for you. And the eyes can be closed if you want them to be partially open, totally fine. Because this is an invitation to creating safety within for your inner child. And she needs that from you. So she feel that she can rest. So coming into your inner body and meeting your breath, find your next exhale and start to slowly follow the gentle rise of the inhale. So no need to make the breath do anything. Just know that when you exhale completely, you create more space for a fuller in breath, but just nice and easy, and soften everything you can. All your muscles, especially in the area of the face, between the eyebrows, jaw, neck, and shoulders. And then move right into your heart and ask within for your little self to step into that space with you. Let her know how safe she is with you. And if she's at all cautious, be patient. You may not have made connection before with her. And this is the time to share from your heart how you might share with a little child. Perhaps you are a mother or a father, for the men listening. How would you speak to this little one to reassure her and to let her know that she can also have whatever feelings she has that are present for her? So you've just listened to a lot of things in this interview, and some of them may have brought up things for you. And there were many, many points that were covered by Violet and myself about our own journeys and ways that we observed and became aware of how we've done things in the past. And everyone has those things that we wish we had done differently, how we feel about ourselves that is actually negative. And what we want to do here is offer compassionate self-forgiveness to ourselves and to all the ages we've ever been. So I'm just going to invite you to come up with just one or two things that you know that you have judged yourself for. Just as Violet was sharing the pattern of dissociating as a parent, or we both were sharing how we attracted men into our lives that were beyond not supportive, were actually abusive, and the shame that can come up around those situations. And coming back to your heart, I'm just going to say inside, I'm going to invite you to experience this. I forgive myself for judging myself for not showing up as the parent that I wished I had. Or I forgive myself for judging myself for choosing men who harmed me. I forgive myself for judging myself for not standing up for myself. I forgive myself for judging myself for not believing in myself. I'm going to pause for a few moments, and anything that comes to you that is like that, just saying it to yourself gently with love. Focus on your breathing. And then check in again with that inner child and see if she's more calm, more receptive. Imagine you can just wrap her up in your arms and hold her to your heart and just let her know that none of it was ever her fault. We do the best that we know how in the moment, trying to survive, trying to figure things out, trying to be okay. And all we deserve is more love, more compassion, more understanding, more grace. And then we're going to move into something that I call the real truth, which is a practice of reframing the negative into the positive. And this is what I was referring to earlier about the heart set to support the mindset. So when my heart is soft and open and I feel that compassion within myself, then I can engage my mind in a more positive mindset and framework to move forward from. I can see back into time and go, wow, the reason why I attracted abusive relationships was I was taught from a young age to believe that I was bad. Bad things happened. It must have then been my fault, and therefore I deserve to be punished. And so now I can look back and say, that wasn't my fault. I was only a little girl. I did not do anything wrong. I was not bad. I did not deserve to be hurt or be punished. Actually, I deserve the best that life has to offer because I am love. And when I love myself, everything shifts, everything changes, and I get to choose from this day forward how I want to live my life and be in relationship with myself first and foremost. Any other words you wish to add from your current self in this moment back in time to the youngest memory you have of you, and just flood with loving all the parts of you. And take a few deep breaths. And then bring your palms together, rub them a little bit. And then bring them to rest over your eyes softly. Take another deep, full breath. And on the exhale, you can just soften your hands back down into your lap. And thank all the younger parts of you that came forward for this meditation, and thank yourself for participating and opening up to the loving. You can slowly open your eyes.
Mm, that was so beautiful. As we were in that deep meditative state, one of the things that came to me is how that little girl, my girl of yesterday, lacked completely a sense of safety. And doing this meditation, it just reverses that. Like it's literally sending a new program to my operating system, one where I am safe. You know, all the mistakes I made, the coping mechanisms I had developed, the opportunities I didn't jump on, it was all because I didn't feel safe. And I learned a lot of things in my 2-decade corporate career, a lot, but I never learned anything about creating safety in the body. I never learned anything about the nervous system and regulating it, you know? And so this was just so beautiful Thank you so, so much. And for the viewers, if you participated in that meditation, you can already feel a slight difference. And here's the beauty. Here's the beauty of meditation and sticking with it. Like I can already feel just from taking 10 minutes to give myself that sense of safety, a shift inside. And this will help you overcome anxiety, stress, overwhelm, short term. But
Mhm.
long term, this has effects that will completely, change the trajectory of your life because we're creating new pathways in the brain. We are literally rewiring our operating system. So that's why I'm such a big believer in meditation is the short-term benefits and the long-term benefits. So thank you for sharing that with us. What if our guests want more? What if they want to see your show or they want to work with you as a heart set coach? How can our viewers find you?
Well, I'm sure you'll put a link somewhere for my website, so that's the place to go. I'm not currently performing, but there is information about both shows, and I am a speaker on the topics that are involved with becoming trauma informed and building resilience and healing for those who are trauma survivors. And I do, of course, work with people on Zoom. If you happen to be north of Los Angeles in Topanga Canyon, come and see me. I do
In
work
person.
out in nature and with horses.
Mm, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so, so much. This was delightful. Anytime we get to raise awareness on childhood trauma and how those traumas affect us in our adult lives and what we can do about it, it's always a great day for me because I know so many of us are in the dark. So thank you for this beautiful message and the beautiful meditation and just sharing your wisdom and the light that you're adding into the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Violet.
All right, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Hit that bell and make sure you subscribe. And if you have any friends that have any struggles with perfectionism, addiction, anything that we talk about on this show, and they are ready to awaken to who they really are, make sure you forward this channel to them as well. And as always, God bless. Until next week.